Good evening. Welcome to the August 28, 2018 meeting of Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh?
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the Municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy.
Please join me in a pledge of allegiance, followed by a prayer and a moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and the general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Hurt?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Phelan?
Here.
Mayor Winterfield?
Here.
We have a quorum.
There are no presentations this evening, so at this time we'll take reports from volunteers. If there's anyone, comments from volunteers serving our community? Oh, not public, volunteers yet. You're right, you're next. 30 seconds. Okay. The next item on the agenda is public comment. The public comment period will be limited to a total of 30 minutes. An additional period of public comment is reserved later in the meeting. Individuals are requested to limit their questions and comments to 3 minutes. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized to come to the microphone and provide your name and address for the record. You're up. And your name and address for the record.
My name is Roger Fednick, 23 Lockwood Ave, Ponton Plains. I'm here about PV Park, and I've got some notes, so I don't go into any rambling or desultory comments to waste your time. So bear with me. It's not a long time, but I think I'm going to make it very pertinent. I employed a town council to rescind the policy of allowing out-of-town residents to use the PV Park facility for the following reasons. Unlimited non-residents are entering the park, and they disobey the rules and regulations that are stipulated in the PV Park Guide. Up to 25 to 30 at a time are coming on weekends, and they come in as a group. It's not really allowable. Second of all, noise levels played from boomboxes in the barbecue area disturb other park users. There's a lot of horseplay going on, chasing each other around, yelling at a volume that offends other park patrons. Bongo playing. People, I'm a lover of music. If it was Mongo, Santa Maria, Santana, or Tito Puente, I'd be fine with it, okay? But this, you can't relax, it's loud, and it's really opprobrious, okay? That's a problem with that. Difficult for resident patrons to use the barbecue area because of the large numbers of non-residents who use the grills. Sometimes we can't even get a table because so many non-residents are there barbecuing. From our small group, 2 beach chairs were stolen this year. I've been here for 3 decades. My friends have been here longer. It's never happened before. Swimming, this is really a concern of mine as far as the park being able to stay open because of the situation we had last year. There's a lot of the non-residents who have an inability to do so. They can't swim. The lifeguards have to be extremely vigilant because so many non-residents can't swim. They try to swim to the dock and they can't. An example, last year there was about a kid who was about 19 years old. He was rescued by a lifeguard on the board, and he got to the shoreline, and what he was greeted with, his friends, family, etc., with a lot of laughter and applause. It was emanating from these people because he had to be rescued. Instead of embarrassment or a modicum of common sense, he threw his hands up and laughed heartily as if he accomplished something special. Our park guards are terrific. They shouldn't have to do this and be so cognizant of people who can't swim. The park manager, Emily, who was fantastic, I'm happy for her that she's going to nursing school, but she won't be there next year, but she was a fantastic park manager, as are the other guards. She, one day, on a weekend, very crowded weekend, where there's so many of these residents and non-residents, She had to stand by the shoreline where this large group had assembled in the water on a Sunday because the small children, there was a safety issue. They were there, they were unattended by the parents, and there was no supervision by the parents. We're talking about children, and Emily was so aware that she made sure that everything was going to be okay. We observed many non-residents just 2 weeks ago, and also once before, jumping the fence, children also, picking their children up, dropping them over the fence, while entering and exiting the park. This is not only something we encountered and addressed with these people as to why they were doing it, and the response was a contentious and arrogant, mind your own business. When we questioned this behavior, this fence hopping was verified to me by one of the gate guards who indicated she had seen it previously. I'm not going to mention her name, but it was corroborated. There's been swearing and changing of diapers on the beach. When questioned about this, it's something that was not suitable for park decorum or rules, they confronted the resident patrons and began to argue about it. In conclusion, we love our township. We take a lot of pride in our domicile. We feel fortunate to have a facility like PV Park, which is such close proximity to our homes, so well managed by the lifeguards and also the people in Town Hall here, and it is a beautiful place to spend the summer months. However, we as township residents who pay taxes to live in this bucolic community deserve to go to PV Park without the aggravation we experienced and the rule breaking that we witnessed, and we had to tolerate this through much of the season, mostly on weekends to be fair. This is not an indictment of any non-residents in any capacity, whether it be economic, geographical, or their particular lineage, but rather it is a delineation of what transpired. We have rights as denizens of this town, and we believe that we should have a pleasant, uneventful day at the park, and situations like this, like I've depicted, should never occur, or have never occurred that I've seen with township residents. I hope the Township Council members will consider our position and make this judicious decision to reinstate the park, to restore the park, rather, to PV Park to its previous pastoral place. Thank you for your time, your attention, and consideration in this manner. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a comment. I tend
Yeah, me
to
too.
agree
Go ahead.
with some of the things that you're saying.
Did you say you do agree?
I do agree with what you were saying. Okay. Adam, is there a way to find out how many residents are actually going to PV Park? I guess they sign up for a yearly versus what we're taking in at the gate. And is there any way to find out who's a resident or not? I would go with how many people signed up for the entire year, because they're definitely probably residents, I would assume.
Well, there's obviously a way to determine
there's gate records.
what classification of membership people have and gate records of guests versus non-guests who may be residents or non-residents. And I don't want to infringe upon your comments, but in addition to concerns about who's from where, I think there's a lot of issues with respect to rule following.
Right.
Yeah.
Rule
Because that was the
enforcement.
next part.
So I think there's a couple of different ways to look at this. And one of the most important things that we need to really take a look at is an analysis of who's using the park and get feedback from the staff on, what's happening. I appreciate you taking the time tonight to share your concerns.
Well, Mr. Brewer, how are 25 to 30 people able to get into the park? And I believe it stipulates in the rules that as a resident, you're allowed to bring in 5 people.
Well, see, that's a problem with
How
rule
is that
following.
possible?
Right,
Yeah,
and
that's
I don't
a
have an
problem.
answer for you.
And look, the gate guards are typically young kids, and they do their best.
Sure.
But they're not cognizant of what's going on because they're looking to just move along and do things with some propriety. So I'm not blaming them. And also the guards, their intention is what? Make sure that they are concerned about what's happening in the water. So they're not seeing what's happening with the fences and the people. And generally it happens only on one side of the lake. Not where the swim lanes are, but where the park is.
Yeah.
That's where it happens.
And that's where I say, I think there are a number of different issues that you raised that need to be addressed in different ways, and I need to speak with the staff and start to gather some information.
And as a final thing, final thought, can I just say that we're not complainers. We don't exaggerate. This is something that's verifiable We're good citizens, we've been here for decades, and I wouldn't have brought it up except it's a concern because we love the facility.
No, we appreciate it. We love the lake,
We're not questioning
too.
anything you say, trust me.
No.
Sometimes people come in and say a whole lot of
Stuff.
No.
right?
Stuff.
And it's exaggerated.
No, we
and
take you
it's ridiculous.
seriously.
We know everybody sitting in the audience, so,
Yeah.
yeah, we know you guys are not exaggerating.
And I would have taken the time to make sure I didn't waste your time by doing this if I wasn't serious about it, and made sure that you understand the issues.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Predominantly, are you usually just seeing this on the weekend, or have
More
you
so.
seen it?
Yeah,
With
Mr.
these
Hurt, I see it
groups, yeah.
more so on the weekend.
Have you seen it at all during the week, or?
Not as much. Not as much.
Because
We had a
most people are
situation.
not going to be using it
people are
during
going
the
on the
week.
And what about over, because I think policy changed a couple of years ago, so let's say over the last 3-4 years, have you seen, like, what have you seen? Have you seen differences, more people coming, or
Notably-
is this the worst year? or-
My friends and us were fortunate enough to be able to be there a lot because basically we're retired and it's such a beautiful facility. And we're able to go there and we barbecue on weekends and it's fantastic. In the last 4 years, it's a very good question. There's definitely been a change and we've tolerated it. And we've put up with it saying, maybe it'll change, maybe it'll change. This year it got to the point where we said, we don't like to do this. Believe me, we hate to go before you and bring up these issues. But we said,
This is how we find out.
No, we need to
why
nip it in the
should we,
bud.
as good citizens, and you've heard this a million times, who pay our taxes, have to tolerate this? We're there to relax. We're there to act appropriately. When people come in, don't act appropriately and ruin things for us, it's time to speak up.
I do want to ask Mr. Brewer a question. I do believe a couple of years ago, and you might have to look into this, we did change the policy. I mean, obviously, we wanted to make sure we kept PV Park open because the membership was low. But you mentioned something in the rules about 5 people. I thought we opened it up, so...
Not to 25, not to huge groups
No,
like
but
that,
he
though.
said something about 5.
Well, no,
I think
there-
non-residents are allowed to join now, and there's not a number, however, they shouldn't be coming in
They're
groups.
probably coming daily.
There was a number attached to
No,
the family.
right.
There was a family unit issue that we
Right.
changed this year.
And I guarantee these people are...
But I don't think we have a
daily
number in there.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah, I'd
article
say
is
they're
number
dailies.
14. Membership
Is that
may
new?
bring up to 5 guests.
I think you were referring to guests.
But then I was told by one knowledgeable person down here, one of the guards who is one of the people who have been there for quite a few years, that it's an open door policy.
Well, the
So
problem is, the rules are
hypothetically,
not
that means, let's
enforced.
just do a hypothesis. I can
When
bring
was that
people,
yellow
That's the-
program that was printed this year?
absolutely.
Yeah, but I don't know if it got updated when we made changes.
Is there anything in there about music,
Yes,
loudness?
absolutely.
Well, maybe we can look into that.
It's enforcement. It sounds like a lot of
There
enforcement
is,
issues.
and that's why I
don't remember
referred
the
to
5
this
people rule.
before I made my statements here, because I wanted to make sure that they were precise, and again, I don't like to come and not
Sound
know
like
what I'm talking about.
non-residents.
So I read this through a couple of times, to make sure I had it. And yeah, there is a thing about music not being bothering people, disorderly conduct, horseplay.
But it has to be reported.
Right, it has to be enforced. It
Yeah.
has to-
Yeah, reported and enforced.
And
Yeah.
it's difficult to have the young individuals.
Yeah, you have
enforce
to
it.
hire an older staff to monitor that.
In response to your query, music and television volumes must be kept at a low level enough not to disturb other park patrons. Look, we have no problem with it, okay? But you can't be blaring this stuff up till we have difficulty
Right.
talking
No.
to each other.
That's
We wouldn't-
disrespectful.
You have to go,
They didn't do
if
it.
you have to go and say, please turn it down, it's already too loud.
And you know what the problem is?
They'll
The
disrespect.
rebuttal may be something that, we don't want to start an altercation,
Well, the park
Right.
manager.
you know, and
deals with
things get out of hand.
There
And
should be
that's our concern.
somebody policing it.
Yeah.
Whether it is an older
it. Or a park ranger or
park
something.
ranger, somebody who's paid a full-time salary to just police
Yeah.
what's going on.
And Mr. Phelan, the climbing over the fence, this happened just 3 weeks ago.
That's
And
unacceptable.
picking children up
It's
over the
unacceptable.
fence.
They're cheating the system, basically.
Well, not even cheating, God forbid something
Yeah, but I don't
happens.
even know
It's
if
our
you even know
liability
about
if they
that.
get caught on that.
And I know at the lake, and can you answer this for me,
Stop the
because so many patrons don't go any longer, and quite frankly, everybody has their prerogatives, I don't know why, because it's such a great facility. It's so close, it's
Oh,
absolutely
it's a
gorgeous.
gem. That's
Oh,
why we fight to keep it open.
When I moved into town 30 years ago, I said, I can't believe I have this, right? But here's the bottom line, is if you don't have anybody that is stopping this situation as far as children, and adults.
Somebody's going to get hurt.
And as I said, when we didn't confront them, we said nicely, what are you doing?
Exits this way.
This one tough guy, he was a pretty tough guy, he said, mind your own business. We said, well, this is our business, our town.
Yeah.
So, and we left it at that because, again, it's not worth
I
it.
can assure you that it'll be handled. I can assure you. Yeah, I can assure you Mr. Brewer is going to be right on top of this with his staff.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Brewer, how about the amount of people that are going to be allowed? Will you make sure that it's...
Again, the rules that are articulated are the rules. So there's issues of enforcement, there may be issues of resources, people may not feel like, but, my first job ever, and no disrespect to being the town manager, my favorite job ever was being a lifeguard. And I can remember when you're 15, 16 years old, you can feel intimidated, but you have an obligation to do a job, and if you can't, then you have to know where you go beyond yourself to get support. And that's what I need to follow up with and make sure all those things are in place. So
And I know-
I'll absolutely follow up with all of the staff department that's located here as well as at PD.
And I know it was pointless to go to one of the younger people, like any of the lifeguards,
Yeah,
to
their job
confront
is
one of
to
these
go to the lake.
guys, because I don't want to see them
No.
have to go through that kind of situation.
But during the week, you shouldn't have to wait to a council meeting to come. I mean, Mr. Brewer is in charge of all the activities that happen in town, and he's here on a daily basis, and he's accessible 24/7. I would never hesitate. Don't wait to contact him on anything. And if you have to call, if it's something like jumping the fence and calling the police, don't hesitate to even do things like that.
Well, Mayor, we really don't like to do this.
I know.
Because we're not going to...
Nobody does.
Sometimes you just got to
I know.
hit the button.
It's all right?
I know.
Because we're so lucky to live here. all right?
I know.
But the bottom line is, I'm glad you said that. Thank you for supporting us and having our back. It got to the point where we had to do it.
Yeah.
And so much of the park, if I understand, is about economics, people not coming in, which is why you have to have it like an open door.
Totally. If we didn't have outside residents, I'm not sure if we'd be able to have PV Park open.
Wow. So
Right now, it's just that.
Everybody has a swimming
It's
pool
not
in
making
town.
money, it's just supporting itself.
Yeah,
supporting itself.
yeah.
I think what we need
Yeah,
to...
we need to take a closer look at
We
what...
need to find out how much money is being generated by out-of-town residents.
Right,
And if
that's...
it's $2,000, $3,000,
It ain't
really,
worth it.
it's not going to make or
Right,
break
we
PV
can
Park.
afford the $2,000,
Well,
$3,000.
Right, but the out-of-town is also covered by our
Campers.
nonprofits and
Our
for-profit,
campers.
other entities that have kids that are in there that are also from out of town.
And I want to
Really gotta
reiterate...
look at enforcement.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I don't think we want to throw the baby
I
out
want to
with the bathwater.
reiterate, it mostly happens on weekends. Weekdays, generally, it's okay, but the weekends,
All right.
there's phalanx of people.
Well, we really appreciate you coming forward. I know it takes a lot to make you have to come forward.
Yeah, because we...
So I'm glad you did.
Like to do. Thank you so much for your
I'm
courtesy.
glad you did.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else with any public comment? Come on up. Give your, just name and address for the record.
Jack Snowden, 52 Round Pole Road. Well, folks, I'm back again. You'll notice I tried to stay away for the last 2
It's okay.
years. You were very responsive to the problems we had before. I didn't want to wear out my welcome. But this has gotten to the point of really being critical at this point, I think, at PV Park. Mr. Fednick was kind when he said that the problems were music and that sort of thing. I'm more concerned about smoking dope on the beach, which happens every time they're there. Drinking on the beach. Now, we can't drink on the beach. There's some puritanical force at work in Pequannock that doesn't let us have a beer at the beach, but they do. They came in at one party carrying boxes of Pampers, but not like this, on their shoulders. Now, a box of Pampers weighs what, a pound? You know what was in those boxes.
Right.
Now, we're sitting there saying, we're obeying the rules. These people are not obeying the rules. And not only are they arrogant if you confront them, they're downright intimidating. I mean, we confronted this one group going through the fence as a comic aside and comment on the intelligence of these people. Not only did they go under the fence to get into the lake, but when they were ready to leave, they went back under the fence to leave the lake for some unknown reason. Stupidity, I guess. But when we were...
That's horrible.
When we were confronting him, I mean, this guy was trying to intimidate us. So he said, we'll be back next week, indicating he'll be back with his buddies next week.
Well, I don't think he'll be back anymore after tonight.
Well,
Here's a question for you.
I got a
Did you
feeling.
notice when they're leaving or when they're getting there, are they going into a car and then leaving?
yes.
It's a white
What I
pickup
did
truck.
was, the last time, I purposely got there before the lake even opened on a Sunday, because I wanted to see how they were getting in the first place. I couldn't stay there all day.
Right.
But what they do is they drive around to the back part of the parking lot, the furthest back. I think it's the north side, I would call it.
Yeah.
By where the trail
The
is?
trail?
Yes, exactly.
They're
And-
getting in over there, yeah.
And right along there's a stretch where the fence is loose. You could push the bottom of the fence up and right under, and that's what they're doing.
So they're not even paying to come in, they're just sneaking in.
Your comment about are we making any money, I can't imagine we are, because half of them aren't even paying. They're just sneaking in. But here's the crucial thing. I understand the financial problem that PV Park poses. I think you also ought to keep in mind, though, that it's not supposed to be a moneymaker. It's supposed to be a recreational facility for the town. We don't expect to make money off of tennis courts or basketball courts or anything like that. And it's the same thing with PV Park. If it costs the town a little money, it's a legitimate thing to spend some money on. But I understand your concern, not wanting to waste money on it. You have to balance doing things that will make a little money and doing things that will drive people away. Now, you who have been on the council for a while know I've sang this song over and over again. You stop chlorinating, half the lake left. You let the lake get dirty so it was closed 3 or 4 times during the year, another big chunk of people left. You let the dike get exploded and took away half the swimming year and didn't pay people back their money, another chunk of people left. You can't keep doing this. People will say, the heck with this, I will build a pool. Or I'll go to my friend and says, I'm not going to put up with this. And now they're saying, I'm not going to put up with dope smoking, drunkenness, cursing, screaming, yelling, and intimidation from people who do not belong here.
Right, Jack, it comes down to enforcement. Somebody's got to be enforcing what's going on.
Well, he wouldn't even have to enforce it if the rules were, he can't come.
But you got to enforce to get the rules.
Yeah,
I can assure you, after today, you won't see this.
I hope so. Here's what
I'm sure Adam will be on top of
maybe you
this.
think about. Try to strike a little balance and say, look, I'm sure that when you thought about opening the lake up, your idea in your head was a small family coming from who knows where with their children, come to the lake for the day, have a nice swim, relax and stuff. I'm sure you didn't think it was 50 or 60 people coming in to do the things these people are doing.
No, people like that should be ejected from the park.
Yes, you can't if you have an open door policy.
No, you can eject people who don't follow the rules.
Again, that's why we have to have somebody there to enforce it.
Yeah, we can eject people who are not following the rules.
It's really kind of scary confronting these people, I'll tell you.
Well, you shouldn't have to.
I don't think I've ever seen a ranger there all year.
Wow.
And it's only Sundays that the danger exists, because there's too many of them. Saturday, too, sometimes.
Well, I'm sure, Mr. Brewer, I don't know if you want to say anything, but I know you'll be on top of this.
Yeah,
I can tell you tomorrow morning.
Staff
I'm
as
sure.
well as enforcement, and membership is one thing, but again, I think there's a bunch of different things being presented with
safety
staff
issues.
doing their thing. It's not your obligation as residents or patrons to have to confront things, and if it's something that's that sensitive in nature of people acting belligerent, then that's what a police force is for.
Well, I think building up membership solves your problem. That solves your money problem. But you can't do that if people are finding
We can't have people breaking the rules.
Because then people won't be
Residents or non-residents.
Not to be overly dramatic, but I don't know, how many of you remember Pleasureland Pool? Remember that? They used to have the monkeys there, all kinds of big acts. You know what happened to Pleasureland Pool? They started letting anybody in who wanted to come in.
There was a shooting.
A machine gun shooting.
Yeah.
And people come in who are not like us. There are people who sell things on the street with their MAC-10s and their knives and whatever. And I don't know, maybe these people who are coming are the nicest people in the world.
That's why I know I appreciate you doing all the things you're doing, but I really would caution you as approaching these people. Honestly, a quiet call to 911 is much better approaching a manager than trying to handle it yourself. I think that is a dangerous situation.
You're right.
And I think you should think twice.
And it just galls me that we all work so hard to keep this lake going.
I know.
That we have to put up with.
And we will continue to work hard.
All right, I hope you do. And consider that the guest policy as well. If you have a guest policy that allows an unlimited number of guests, then we're going to be right where we are now. One person can bring in 50 or 60 people. That's not what is meant by a guest policy. It's meant to bring your brother-in-law and his kids in for a picnic or something, not the whole neighborhood that you come from.
Well, the thing is, they're like the gatekeepers of the park. They're mature adults. I mean, I know you're going to be talking to everybody tomorrow, but this happens this weekend. What is your suggestion to them?
Well, I'm immediately tomorrow going to speak with the director of the department as well as the acting.
Because we may have a big
officer in charge of
weekend.
The police department, and with Labor Day weekend coming up, what I'll do is, in addition to making sure that there's an established protocol to escalate the situation, we're going to have some walkthroughs by the police department.
I will say,
regular
after we
occasions.
confronted them about it last Sunday, the main group didn't appear. Now, I doubt very much they were afraid of me. I think they were probably afraid that I was going to cause some trouble and there was going to be police there or whatever. That's what they were probably afraid of. But
Pequannock has a great tradition of community policing, and I can think of no better way of promoting that than having some good walkthroughs and presence in the park this week.
You guys have really been very receptive on PV Park all through the years. I know that.
I love PV Park. I grew up on a lake.
Right, now that I'm retired, I'm there every day.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't enjoy it anymore.
No. I can't imagine how bad it is that made you come here, so I really get the message.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
Read
All right.
the message.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, come on up.
Elaine Baccarella, 16 William Street, Pequannock. I see that you have on the docket, you're going to discuss the carry-in, carry-out policy. So you're just going to discuss it, you haven't really talked about it yet?
No, not at all. This will be our
Okay.
first time discussing it since the survey. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting up.
All right.
Yeah, tonight is just discussion.
Okay, good. Well,
do you
I'm just
think
going to make
about
a
it?
couple of comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, shoot.
I happen to live not far from Greenview Park. I walk through it all the time, or bike through it, and I'm one of those people that picks up trash along the way. It's like a scavenger hunt for me. I have noticed since we do the carry-in, carry-out, there's less for me to pick up. Friends of mine, when I first approached this subject of carry-in, carry-out, they went ballistic. How stupid is that? And I had to tell them, when was the last time you went through any of the parks? Well, yeah, I don't go through the parks, but I read on Facebook that people are upset. So I said, well, those 10 people that are always complaining anyway have no clue. And I proceeded to tell them about my findings of going through the park myself. And my husband, we both do this ourselves. They would always complain, oh, there's overflowing garbage cans, they don't pick up enough. I said, no, trash is all throughout the entire park, not even close to the garbage cans. So don't tell me that they're missing the garbage cans because they're overflowing. It was always all over. Now, there's really not that much. And I always think, oh, maybe DPW is going through the park before I get there. So I go there various times. I really don't. I've even seen people at the pavilion where they're having a party, and there's a mom with this giant garbage bag collecting all their trash. I said, how wonderful is this? There is some trash there on occasion, but not nearly what it was, including Woodland Lake, walking around, less trash there as well. It's kind of a miracle. I don't understand it myself, but I think it's a win-win. I hope they keep it up. I think the survey is not going to say that it's a win-win, but I really do think that the town has never looked cleaner.
Wow.
I really do. Even up and down the avenue. The trash cans used to be overflowing, yes. Now, I don't even see trash.
Well, I appreciate that from an eyewitness.
I really do. I think people are becoming more mindful, and I think they need extra time. I think what I'd love the town to do, because I get the little email blasts from Parks and Rec, I think they need to promote it, tell the townspeople that they're doing a marvelous job, even if they're not, or have no clue. Half the people don't even know what's carry out. I have never heard of that. I think you just need to put a positive spin on it. I really do. I did look at the permit online to see what Woodland Lake is, or, I should say Greenview Park, like when people want to get the pavilion. I don't see anything on that permit that says carry in, carry out, but I'm sure that they're telling them, because they are picking up after themselves.
Yeah, there's probably places we need to upgrade that.
Yeah, it just has to be publicized a little bit more, even in town. A friend of mine lives opposite Greenview, the soccer field, and I brought it up to her, and she right away started to blast that ugly garbage can, so disgusting. I have trash all over my backyard, it's horrible. I said to her, well, but the garbage can should be gone now because it's a carry in, carry out. And she actually stood there and thought, you're right, there's no more garbage can that I have to look at, and there's no more trash in my backyard. She goes, until you said that, I really didn't even think about it. So people just have to be mindful and just learn that if you have a wrapper in your pocket, and you're going to just put it back in your pocket. It's not a big deal. But I just wish that that Parks and Rec and the town would just send out little blasts thanking people, like the Green Team did with thank you for not idling, put a positive spin on it. And I think DPW is probably saving money by not having to pick up this trash. We're not paying for extra solid waste tonnage or recycling tonnage. It's a win-win. And I think that should be promoted a little bit to let the residents know that this is also a way we become sustainable, too.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming forward, and brave soul.
Okay. I'm just hoping that it goes forward, because I did to say my friend who lives right by the park, I said, well, unless you let Parks and Rec know, I said, those garbage cans are coming back. And she was like, no, I don't want them back.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Donna? Oh, all right.
Hi, Jeannie A. Bear, 11 Copley Court, Pompton Plains. I really, really wish, as do a lot of people, you would chlorinate again and bring the park back to being private. However, if that's not possible right now or ever, maybe you could put something in your pamphlet about, you have, it's not acceptable to change diapers on the beach. Really not acceptable to go into the water with your clothing on. And if you're going to allow non-residents in, maybe there can be a hand stamp system, and someone can go around and police and see if they have a stamp. The only time we saw the park ranger this year was on the day of the truck festival. That was it. Another thing is some of the people, just yesterday this happened, the children were running into the water and swearing out loud. And my friend said, you're really not supposed to do that. And they did it again. Then the mother came, and my friend said, well, these are the rules here. And her response was, well, we don't live here. And the guard came over and said something because somebody had reported them. And the woman became belligerent even with the guard. So, some of these, they're wonderful. But maybe you do need one or two older ones because the people just look at them and, well, this is a kid.
Yeah, they disrespect them.
Exactly, exactly. So, but really, if you would chlorinate again, I bet a lot of people would come back. And you wouldn't have to have it open to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Seriously. And get the fish back over on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
I knew that part was coming.
Donna?
Mayor, if I could just mention the chlorination thing. I don't think there's anybody that would love to chlorinate more than us. Unfortunately, the State Department of Environmental Protection will not allow it. So it's not something that's
Optional. Yeah, it's not an option.
Yeah, it's as much as we would like to do it, it's not something we're allowed to do.
Not even a little bit? No, I say that because I just heard the amount that you are allowed to use wouldn't be enough for the whole lake, but I think anything would be an improvement.
I'll reconfirm it with the people I've discussed it with, but my understanding is we can.
Go ahead.
Ready?
You got the
All
floor.
right.
Name and address.
Donna Satani, 117 Greenwood Avenue, Pequannock. A couple of meetings ago, I spoke to you about expanding the communication between Rotary and Council. So here's my first shot at it.
Go for it.
All right. This past month, Rotary went to Camp Mary Hart, which is a camp for severely disabled children. Kids are in wheelchairs, they have cystic fibrosis. Anyway, we brought them hot dogs and rolls, and they had a big barbecue, so several of our members went. I think 7 of them went. We put out 4 food baskets in town, food bins. We had heard that our food pantry was running a little low, so we have 4 different businesses in town with a barrel, and we've already made 2 drop-offs to the food pantry, so we're helping with that. September 26th, we have our meeting, which will be held at Chilton this time, and we'll be touring their facility and having lunch there, so we can see what's new with Chilton. We made a donation to a Girl Scout from Lincoln Park who is working on her Bronze Award, and she's renovating the dog park in Lincoln Park, doing a fountain in there, and she really has an amazing plan. So we were able to help her with that a little bit. Quilting for a Cause put out an SOS that they needed some extra funds for quilting thread. So we gave them a donation. On an international level, one of our clubs in Jefferson hosted a short-term exchange student program. And they were about 50 students from Japan who came for just like about a week. And the Jefferson Club took them all throughout New York City, City Field, Statue of Liberty, and just kind of gave them a little taste of New York. So we donated some money to help them host these students. We're having a family barbecue on September 15th. One of our biggest fundraisers, our golf outing, is on September 7th. And the proceeds are going to drug addiction and prevention and treatment, and also our foundation, which is where we give scholarships out and all other kinds of donations. We helped the Lincoln Park Lions Club out with their Music on the Lake by a donation. I'm sure you know about the Boy Scout in Pequannock who is redoing the garden at...
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. He's doing an excellent job. So we helped him out with that a little bit. In September, we're doing a dictionary project where we distribute regular dictionary books, which is like a new, like, I don't know if these kids are going to know what they are.
You have to teach them.
But anyway, to all the third graders in Lincoln Park, Pequannock, and Riverdale, as well as the private schools. So we do that every year, and it's very rewarding. We go over teaching them, we make them look up the word service, and then we go into our spiel about how Rotary is a service organization. It's really, I love their little faces.
I love when they add new words to the dictionary every year.
Yeah. And the last thing is, in the next month or so, we hope to have Joe Wells come in and talk to us about the Riverwalk project and how we can help with that. And
you should have him take you on a hike down the Riverwalk.
No.
We did.
I'm sure you did. The mosquitoes are carrying me away right now. So. And one other thing which we're going to discuss tomorrow at our meeting, one of our members, John Dreesy, is working with a group of kids in Patterson, and they have an after-school program where they're being taught life skills and things like that. It's an older group and a younger group. And the younger group has so many kids in it, they need more benches for them and a cabinet to lock all their musical instruments in. So hopefully, we're going to discuss it tomorrow, but hopefully we're actually going to build that for them and just make life a little easier for them.
That's great.
So
that's a lot of service. Thank you. It's a lot of service.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah. Anyone else? 5 more minutes. Yep. 5 more minutes. We'll go over a little bit.
All right, so Elaine Baccarella, 16 William Street, Pequannock. I just have a question, and maybe you guys already talked about this, but is the council thinking about passing an ordinance against having recreational marijuana stores or farms in our township, if that ever comes to be?
We haven't had that as an official item for discussion yet. We will in the future. I'm sure we will.
How soon? Because I have read other towns have already passed that.
Yeah. I'm sure we will. I'm sure it'll be probably in the next couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, because I hope we don't...
Look for it on our agenda.
Okay.
It'll be a fun topic. All right, good night.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
At this time, we've reached 30 minutes of public comment. As previously noted, an additional period of public comment is reserved later in the meeting. Next on our agenda is the manager's report. Mr. Brewer.
I'm bereft. The audience has left.
I know.
I apologize for all those that ended up to stay. Thank you, Mayor. At the last council meeting, there was discussion about the award of contract for the Jacksonville Road sidewalks. I prepared all kinds of inane details about the project, and then there was a question from the audience about what was included in the project, and I was not prepared for that, so I apologize. But just to correct that, the portion of the project east of the boulevard, it's a sidewalk replacement project for Jacksonville Road. And the sidewalk will be installed on Jacksonville Road between Newark Plumpton Turnpike and West Parkway. The The portion of the project east of the boulevard will include sidewalks on both sides of the road. The portion of the project west of the boulevard will include installation of sidewalks only on the southern side of Jacksonville Road. So the duration of the contract and the number of bids and all kinds of things. Nope, what are we doing? Good question. Good question. So thank you for allowing me to clarify that. Included in my report is a report from the flood advocate. Ms. McCulloch provides an update on the elevation projects, the 2018 grant application cycle. Ms. McCulloch will be making a presentation at the September 25th meeting of the Township Council. We are in the rating cycle for our CRS rating. We're currently rated as a 5. We've had discussion of what will be necessary to get us down to a 4. I don't know if that's going to be an option this time around, but it will be a priority moving forward. And lastly, again, as mentioned, Ms. McCulloch will be here on September 25th, so anybody who wants to hear a report from her, it'd be a great time to come out and hear what's going on with all the things from the Municipal Flood Advocate's perspective. The balance of the items in my report are covered by discussion items, so I'll hold on those until we get to further on in the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on our agenda is public hearing on Ordinance 2018-19. Ms. Marsh?
Ordinance number 2018-19 is an ordinance appropriating $48,000 from water utility capital fund balance and $35,000 from water capital outlay for various capital improvements and acquisitions for the water utility in and by the Township of Morris, New Jersey.
Are there any comments from council? No?
No.
Mr. Cole?
I'm good.
All right. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If anyone in the audience has questions or comments on this ordinance, please come to the microphone and identify yourself for the record. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2018-19.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mayor Winterfield?
Yes. Next on the agenda is the introduction of ordinances. Ms. Marsh.
Ordinance number 2018-20 is an ordinance appropriating $10,000 from the sewer utility capital fund balance for capital improvements for the sewer utility in and by the Township of Pequannock in the County of Morris, New Jersey.
Mr. Brewer, anything to add to that?
This is the Beverly Road lift station. As a result of grease and other things accumulating in the wet well, staff takes approximately 4 to 5 hours a week to address it, and the installation of this piece of equipment will alleviate the requirement for staff to take that time moving forward.
That's great. Are there any comments from council?
No, I think you answered it. I had sent an email, but it was very late. I was trying to figure out if that was a new piece of equipment we were purchasing, whether an old one broke, or whether it was something where we were adding. And
Yeah,
it seems like
this is a new addition.
a new
It's-
addition. Okay.
It's to keep it flowing.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any special training on any of that, or that, no?
They'll just install it, and it'll keep the greases and the solids from building up and allow the
like
well to
grease trap?
flow.
Okay.
And this is down by Beverly?
It's the Beverly lift station, yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion to introduce this ordinance on first reading?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2018-20.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mayor Winterfield?
Yes. Next on the agenda for introduction is ordinance 2018-21. Ms. Marsh?
Ordinance number 2018-21 is an ordinance amending the revised general ordinances of the Township of Pequannock regulating door-to-door solicitation and establishing a do-not solicit list.
Mr. Brewer, anything to add?
My understanding of this ordinance is as a result of the legal challenges posed by a law firm out of Texas to a lot of municipalities in the state of New Jersey and other places. It became a discussion item prior to my appointment. Moving forward, we had some discussion items during my tenure. Based upon the most recent one, the ordinance was prepared in a manner consistent with that for the council's consideration for introduction.
Are there any comments from council?
Nope,
No,
we talked
again,
about this.
yeah, I know we talked about it before, and again, I had sent an email email late, so I know you didn't get to respond, but I guess that's what I was trying to figure out, what triggered this conversation.
It really is triggered by, we're getting a lot of challenges now to municipal solicitation ordinances. Most of us had the same kind of ordinance. We sort of picked certain types of solicitation we said were okay and unregulated. And commercial solicitation is really what we focused on trying to regulate. And lately, the Supreme Court seems to be saying when it comes to matters of speech, we can't distinguish between different kinds of speech. So we did not get challenged by the group from the latest commercial group that came in, because we worked with them and figured out a way to make this work for them and for us. But this is the newest model. The courts have upheld the right of individuals to say we do not want solicitation on our property, as opposed to the municipality deciding for them. So this is a way of letting residents who do not want people coming door to door to their homes to register with us and make that clear. And then the only regulation we really have now is if our resident has said they do not want you going door to door, then you may not go to that home. And if you do, you can be fined, and we will stop you from soliciting at all within the community if you can't figure out a way to stay away from these homes. I do know it's going to be a little difficult with some of the charitable groups who are used to going door to door. I'm thinking that people really won't be looking for enforcement in those instances. I mean, who's going to call on a Girl Scout coming to the door? And frankly, the kids aren't really doing that anymore. It's deemed sort of unsafe today, and we don't see much of that at all. And you know, my experience has just been, I may have neighbor kids coming, selling, you know, the sports teams come, but that's it. And those, nobody really thinks it applies there. So I don't think that's going to really be an issue.
And that's what I was worried about, those charitable groups and children. But like you said, most of them aren't going door to door. And then I was just thinking of those other groups that I guess used to be exempt or whatever. Like, what about, like, you know, we had the utility companies.
They're exempt under state law. So they still would be.
So they don't have to follow this.
Right, they don't.
And then we also had like the church groups, like the...
yeah, they will be covered by this, because people do have a right to say they don't want to be disrupted by those.
And what about the election laws, like the candidates' policies with all that coming up?
You know, I think people who don't want, the candidates probably would be wise. People who aren't happy about door-to-door solicitation probably aren't happy about greeting candidates that way either. So, but, you know, that's...
Selection process. There might be a natural selection.
It might be a natural selection process, but, you know, I think this is really the way we are going to see we are seeing more and more door-to-door solicitation by home improvement contractors. It seems to be, people seem to be selecting home improvement contractors by people going door to door, which I find phenomenal, but apparently they're successful because they're doing it. And they're coming from out of state, and they're selling things like windows and roofing, and people are vulnerable, and that seems to be where they are, and it's probably not the best way to shop for home improvement services. This simply allows people to say, you know, I don't want anyone coming to my door. And as long as we let the resident make the choice, instead of making the choice for them, the court has said we can do that. So that's why we recommend going this direction.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
Councilman Hurd, anything?
I do not.
Councilman Phelan?
I'm going to knock on Bob's door tomorrow.
See what happens, right? Just see what happens.
No, I don't have anything.
Right. The only thing I have is, we keep talking about individual and residents. What about planned communities, like right over here, Crestwood and the Glens?
Yeah.
Can they put in for the entire residents? For their community?
They probably can just put in for their...
Because it already is that. They're already private that says no solicitation. There's signage all over the place.
And are they coming anyway to those communities? Okay.
Yeah, because I actually went to court against one in Lincoln Park,
So we may be able to
that would solve a lot, because it's a lot of administrative work for the clerk. I mean, when you read this, there's a lot of work.
There is, and Carol, maybe you can comment, because we've talked about that and what it would entail, and I get the impression you really feel it's manageable.
Once it gets set up, it's fine.
You know, I'm something of an optimist.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, I think we can get the online, you know, signing up, which will generate a list.
Right.
Properties don't turn over that fast. We might need to limit when it's updated by at some point.
Yeah, because it says in here, I guess, does it say in here somewhere that the assessor is going to let you know when something sells? I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Well, we do get.
Do you?
It just happens that we get noticed when they change over anyway, because we have to put in the tax code.
So you know to pull off, you know, somebody who's there, and then somebody else would have to know to opt in.
Yes, and so we're going to put it in the next newsletter.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure the word of mouth will take care of itself.
And I guess we'll have to continue to keep it in the newsletter, or keep it in something, or put it on the calendar that comes out.
Website.
It'll be on the website.
Yeah, all right, okay. Yeah, our calendar usually gets done in September.
I mean, other towns do this, and they seem okay with it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So we don't need to add anything in there about planned communities, just leave it?
No, I think we just leave it.
Just leave it and let it
Yep.
be? Okay. Is there a motion to introduce this ordinance on first reading?
I'll make a motion to introduce 2018-21.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mayor Winterfield?
Yes. And that's funny, Carol, that's the end of my book.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, you have it.
I have my...
Here, run over.
No, I got it. That's where it is.
Next is resolutions.
Resolutions for approval. Ms. Marsh?
Wait a minute, I want to see if I have it on the rest of my list.
Ms. Marsh? Is your book in too?
Resolutions for, no, I think mine's fine.
Okay, I'll read them
R
for you.
2018-161 for one.
Right. The request-
Resolution R 2018-161, approving the request of Township Manager Adam Brewer to reside outside the township during his tenure in office and amending the agreement between Mr. Brewer and the township. Resolution R 2018-162, authorizing weatherproofing technologies incorporated to complete roof sections A and B of the roof replacement project at the Department of Public Works Building located at 99 Alexander Avenue through the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Pricing System, which is formerly the Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission. And Resolution 2018-163, approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the August 28, 2018 bill list and the August 24, 2018, 2015, and 2016 FEMA elevation escrow list.
Okay. Sure. Mr. Brewer, do you have any comments to add to any of that? I think we've talked thoroughly.
I don't live in town, and I hope you act favorably on the resolution.
Oh, I thought that said, I was confused. I thought it said you were here 10 years.
Can we table that one?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Can we do a separate vote on that?
Yeah.
We're supposed to take up residence in the attic.
We have
Empty mansion.
a nice old house. Okay, are there any comments from council?
I was just going to say, which we just joked about more for the benefit of the audience, that the only thing that was changed in here is that you didn't have to live in town.
Which is a requirement of the Falkland Act,
Right.
which is what governs the township of Pequannock's form of
So we're breaking the law?
No, you're allowed to waive it, you just have to waive it.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve 2018-161 through 163.
I'll second.
Roll call?
I'm all shook up here.
That's right, you're testing me. I'm going off my head.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mayor Winterfield?
Yes. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. First one is September 11th meeting schedule. I think we've all seen the notes about that.
Yeah, that's good.
As long as they're, I mean, I still think we're cutting it tight,
What time
7:30.
does it start again?
It starts at 6:30.
As long as they start on time, we should be.
And they won't. So it usually gets over with probably about quarter of is what I'd say. And then you'll have people exiting and maybe people trying to enter, maybe not, I don't know.
I still think we should just have it at 7:30.
I think it's fine, but just to know that it'll probably run late and just, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, like the train schedule, you can run late, you just can't run early.
Exactly.
And
Does
just so
everybody-
everyone knows in the audience, it's because there's going to be the September 11th ceremony out front.
Which we always have. And it conflicts
So
with
please
the
come.
council meeting.
Tell all your friends.
Yeah.
a nice
It's usually a
service.
really nice celebration, yeah. All right, so we're good with that. And then the meeting schedule, I guess that's for the calendar?
Yeah, the next item up is the 2019 meeting schedule. In my memo, I freely acknowledge it's August, so let's not rush the year away, but we do want to talk about it because the calendar is going out. The meeting schedule is pretty typical, with one exception I'll call to the council's attention. The second meeting in December is scheduled for the Friday before the Christmas break and Christmas holiday, as opposed to the day after Christmas. I don't know what people's schedules allow, but we thought that might be a better option.
Yeah, it was 1 o'clock.
Correct.
Yeah, we used
For
to.
1
I
o'clock.
thought the schedule was fine. I looked at all the dates. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with the schedule, except I don't know what I'm doing December 20th at 1 o'clock yet.
Yeah, right, who knows, right? It's a little
Table that.
No, I mean, either I'm here or I'm not here, that's all.
Don't worry about it. I guess you got your consensus.
If that's all right, we'll move forward, because again, this will be published in the Town Planner, which is not our publication, but
Right.
does provide a lot of information to a number of residents, so we want to make sure we get it right.
Right.
So just so we're clear, December 26th of this year, we're meeting at 1?
Next year.
The current calendar calls for the 26th at 1 o'clock this year, yes.
We must have decided that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I may not be able to make that one, I'll tell you right off the bat, because we're doing
he's from
inventory.
this year?
Because of what?
Inventory.
I don't know what business we're going to have to conduct.
Oh, but we
really.
just went through next year, so you're
We
talking
could,
about this year.
you could,
It's usually not, it's usually just the past bills
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
It's usually like
But it was
15
at 1
minutes.
o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Correct, it's at 1 o'clock.
So we did that for this year as well.
Yep.
And we're talking about doing for next year. Mr. Brewer, you brought up a good point about the town planner. In the past, I think they've tried to make an attempt to review all the dates in the calendar to no avail. Can you make sure someone here looks at all the dates and at least make sure the schedule of, because they
The
put
committees
everything in.
and stuff.
Yeah, they put everything in there on the committees and the boards and.
Sometimes it's not right.
Yeah, but I think they list them as the second Tuesday, the fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, but they weren't right last year.
Okay.
So.
We have about 10 sets of eyes, 2 of which are mine.
Well, plus the Environmental
You got
Commission,
four.
I know, meets now in the senior house rather than here.
Some
I mean, some of the
some-
meeting places have changed.
And some of the times and meeting places have changed in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they
I don't
have.
think they ever got on the calendar.
They might not know, whoever's doing it might not know.
all of the meeting dates are published on the list, the officials and committees list, the dates and the times and the locations. I'll send out a copy tomorrow morning. If you
Some
could
of them have
verify the
changed the
ones.
location.
If you could look, because I'd rather have that correct anyway, and that's where we get that information from.
Okay.
Okay?
Friday,
And I'm sure you need an answer relatively quickly.
Yes, please.
December 20th.
Wednesday this year.
Yes.
Yeah, because Christmas is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we have to get bills, we have to pass
Absolutely.
through.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, as long as there's, a
I'll probably
quorum,
be-
we're good.
I'll probably be leaving after that.
Yeah,
Going away.
God willing,
Yeah,
we'll
we're
be
go-
around.
Yeah, I'm going away.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll figure out how to get bills paid.
At least I think I'm.
Okay.
So,
All right. Good. Carry in, carry out. Mr. Brewer, you might as well start.
So I'm walking with a municipal department head and an esteemed member of the legal profession who may or may not be sitting 2 seats over from me. And there was a discussion.
Joke.
There was a discussion. There was a discussion about the policy, and there was a little bit of good banter back and forth. And the esteemed attorney said, well, yes, it does look nice, and the department head said, well, of course, this is the idea that it looks better and it takes care of the litter. And the esteemed attorney said, yes, because I pick it up. And the department head responded, obviously, it's working. So by way of background, for the benefit of the record, there was discussion in 2016 about an approach, a philosophical approach to the parks and establishing a carry-in and carry-out policy, which essentially requires that anything you bring in, you bring out with you. So the removal of garbage cans was discussed. Within my report, there's a variety of correspondence that was generated at the time for everyone's reference. But just to summarize that briefly for the purposes of the discussion, the unsightly trash cans, the presence of bees, the impact on litter, there were a lot of significant things pointed out, and importantly, also staff time, because anytime you have garbage cans, as I think was mentioned earlier in the meeting, if they're overflowing, it's very unsightly and it becomes problematic. So you need people that are regularly maintaining them, removing the garbage cans, etc. In 2017, the plan was implemented, and there were some issues primarily with Washington Park because of the presence of a lot of people in the concession stand and things like that. So there was an approach where I don't know if all of the garbage cans were returned, but some were, to deal with the issue there. Recently, there's been discussion, both in person as well as via social media that was also mentioned earlier tonight, about whether there should be or shouldn't be presence of garbage cans in the parks. For the benefit of collecting information, the suggestion was made, thank you, Mayor, that maybe we want to do some sort of survey. SurveyMonkey survey was put out, and 748 people responded, which was a significant response. Now, it's done by IP address, so arguably I could have provided full response if I was so inclined. So I just want to point out that the purpose of the SurveyMonkey survey was not to get valid and reliable statistical and analytical results. It was just to kind of fish for an opinion. The last question in the survey was about, do you wish this to continue? Do you wish this policy to continue? The overwhelming majority of respondents said no. Most people said they did not want it to continue. That said, based on my own experience, talking to people, hearing from residents, talking especially to the staff associated with Parks and Recreation, Public Works associated with cleaning up the parks, and hearing the comments made tonight, the position that, ma'am, you took was echoed, that there has been a positive impact on litter, and there has been a positive impact to the parks. That said, you can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. So, for the benefit of discussion, obviously, I'm welcome to hear whatever the council selects because it is your prerogative as a policy issue. As a suggestion, just as we discussed the matter for consideration, is working with the staff. I think in a lot of places it makes a lot of sense, but there are some places where we might need to have some garbage cans or recycling cans. Do I know what that is right now? No. Does the council know what that is right now? I suspect maybe not. But moving forward, nothing's going to change in 2018, but moving forward to 2019, perhaps we could review it. And I know there was a priority, like in Washington, where there's a snack stand and you're having generation of trash like that, where it might be more of a help. So as positive as the policy is for some of the parks and in keeping things clean and having a good impact on litter, there's also a need for some level of service in some areas. So going to the can't please all the people all the time approach, maybe we can look at a hybrid to see where it makes sense and leave it in place where, put garbage cans back where they make sense and leave the policy of carry in, carry out in place where it also makes sense.
So who would tell us what makes sense?
If the council sees fit, they can delegate that responsibility to me. I'll work with the staff and kind of come up with some ideas for 2019, and then we can talk about it moving forward.
That sounds good. I would like to know what the suggestion is, where we should put garbage cans. And if we do put garbage cans, they need to be taken care of on a regular basis. They can't sit for a week, because what happens is when people see a garbage can, even though it's overflowing, they'll still put garbage on top of it, on the side of it, whatever. You know this deal.
Yeah, garbage cans often become targets as opposed to receptacles.
Yes.
Yeah, well, people empty their cars out.
Right.
They look for an opportunity to clean up their car.
I believe the cans that we had out before, they were emptied every day during the week.
That's staff permitting. I'm sure that was the goal, but I also assume that there were times that may not have happened. I know in past experiences in other jurisdictions, water bottles are really the big thing in sports fields. So sometimes you might need more recycling bins than you would garbage cans because you have more of that activity. And again, there's different ways to look at it. Redeploying all of the garbage cans that were removed, I wouldn't recommend as being a good idea. But taking more of a soft look at this and saying, what works and what makes sense, and circling back to the governing body in the future to say, all right, this is the plan that we've come up with. What do you think?
Well, especially if there are, like at Greenview, like when there's sporting, when there's soccer games and things like that, maybe there's pop-up recycling things and then they're cleaned out and then taken away after, a certain season or something like that. I don't know.
Same thing behind your race, too.
Right.
During season.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you're going to find. I think I like your idea of working with staff, trying to figure out where the policy is working and leaving the policy, but in other areas, especially like the remote parks and stuff, but in other areas where there's a lot of spectators and things going on, even the Greenview Park Pavilion, I don't know, maybe we do need a trash recyclable thing there. But that's the other thing too, having maybe a garbage can and a recycling or whatever, and then to your point, Mr. Cole, is making sure that those get emptied.
Mr. Cole, you're making sure they're getting emptied?
No, but you had brought that up,
Congratulations.
But I think that the policy is working at some areas, and I think, it was great to do the survey, but I think maybe a lot of that input are people that are going to the same parks.
Right.
So.
And it's also people who are motivated to
Right.
express
So it's
view.
going to be a combination, I think, of the two.
Well, I do know there was discussion, and I believe I saw payment for bags for certain things to be hung around, like if somebody has, like, the ice cream man comes, and all of a sudden you're stuck with this sticky thing. There was supposed to be these bags or something that you could put in there and then take that out with you.
there
But
was
I didn't see them installed.
There was supposed to be additional signage, I think, to the credit of what was commented earlier tonight, education and
Right.
providing information to people so they're prepared for it.
Right.
The bags were acquired, they have not yet been deployed.
Right.
I don't know why, so I can't offer that. But I think there are some things that we can do to improve the carry in, carry out, as well as take a look, and again, Greenview Pavilion, just because you mentioned
Well, I'll tell you,
it,
the
man.
hoedown's coming
It's
out.
something we
It's a
can look at.
perfect time for education and for promoting it in a good way.
Right.
At the hoedown, I'm sure the Environmental Commission will be meeting, I'm sure we'll be happy to even take that on as part of,
Yeah, but you can't do the hoedown without garbage cans.
No, you need garbage.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm talking about education.
Oh, okay, good.
No, I didn't say,
It
I
calls
did
in
not,
charge of the garbage
I did
can.
not say that, no.
I also like the new water fountain that was put in at Greenview Park, and if we can afford to put them in other places, it's encouraging the use of recyclable water bottles. Bring your own water bottle, fill it up, drink it, bring it home with you.
Right.
I know all the high schools have, the high school has them in there, and my wife just took a picture of it the other day. I think it's a great idea. Fill up your water bottle, so this way you don't have
Let's stop the plastic
one of
bottles.
these plastic bottles that get thrown away and causing
Right.
all sorts of havoc with
I
it.
do just want to bring up one other sore subject regarding dog waste. Is there, has there been any discussion in all this regarding that? Because we talked about bags for
Well, they
that.
should be carrying that out.
No, I just wondered if there's been any issues.
It was not one of the items highlighted
Okay.
And then the other
survey, or
comments or
what people had
anything.
said to me.
I think it's the law that if you
Well,
walk
it
the
is,
dog,
of
you need
course.
to have a bag with you.
Right,
Yeah.
it is. I just wondered if, if people are...
Well, the one thing I
with
saw in our notes here, and I don't know who mentioned it, but they do have the community grant where organizations can get paid a small sum of money for doing a cleanup. And I participated in one of those. And it has, as the audience had mentioned too, is a lot of this kind of garbage is liquor bottles, and they're those e-cigarette things that are on the outskirts of the parks. They're not, anybody's going to put that stuff in a garbage can. They throw it where it's out of sight, and I think that that's a whole nother issue about, surveilling our parks, and even the things that happened up in Mountainside Park. So that's a whole nother issue that is just an offshoot of carry in, carry out, because now we can see clearly other things that are happening. I mean, around the train station, there's all those vapor things, from all those e-cigarettes being just thrown on the ground. So I think that this is something great for staff to be talking about and figure out how we're going to tackle all of these subjects.
And if I can amplify your comments, Mayor, the Clean Communities Grant is a grant that the health officer, Peter Coriel, and his staff administer. I think it's $300 for someone who wants to sponsor an area. So for the groups that get involved and things like that, whether it's Boy Scouts, whether it's other civic organizations, anybody wants to sponsor an area and get out there and clean up and make a few dollars for their organization.
It's great.
That's
Yeah, you make a
that's
few
something
dollars.
they can do.
You
and
have
it's
a
grant.
nice event, and you learn, and it's education.
Yeah.
It's education about the carry in, carry out.
So I'll circle back to staff and the people that are actually on the ground every day looking at this stuff to get some feedback from them, to come up with some ideas, maybe some phases in some different areas, and then I'll bring it back to the council well in advance of the 2019 spring-summer cycle for discussion.
That's great.
I like that.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Next on the agenda is reports and notices. Are there any comments or questions? No. I'm sure you read all of them. All right, council reports and announcements. Next on the agenda is council reports and announcements. Councilwoman Florence Lynch.
I believe I have nothing except one thing. I noticed the other day, I wondered if you could follow up on this, Adam. Somebody had pointed it out to me, and it's been there for a long time. Over by the hometown market, along the railroad tracks there is an old U-Haul truck. And the police are aware of it. My understanding is, I actually took a picture of the license plate. If you want, I can forward you the picture.
Please.
It's been there for over a year, I believe.
Oh, God.
And it's abandoned. They believe it was a stolen truck and it came from Wayne. I don't know, but we need to get it out of there.
I think someone's using it for storage.
I don't know.
Is it registered, or is it?
I don't know. I'm going to forward this to you, but I meant to.
I'll follow up with
there a lock?
any and all enforcement action or whatever parameters we can operate within, we'll take
I've
action.
been meaning to send it to you. I'll do that right now. I took a picture this weekend.
If there's a lock on the back of it, one of those businesses is using it for a storage facility.
Or God knows what.
When they see it get put away.
Right.
That's a zoning violation.
Correct.
Right.
All right, I'll forward it to you. Thank you. I have nothing else.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Hurd?
I have two things. I had a little bit of a run-in with the Pequannock Police Department, as you may or may not have heard. I had my truck stolen, but I want to say the process and the politeness of the Pequannock Police Department was incredible. So I really want to give a good shout out because the guys definitely knew what they were doing. Detective Jeff Jones and Patrolman Hurtado? I'm totally going to mess that up. 58. Sorry.
His number's 58.
58. Good kid. Really smart. Detective Jeff Jones has been in contact with me and has thought of things that I didn't even think about, from credit cards to Easy Pass to checking things like that. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten any blurps or blips on any of that stuff, but just for him to think about it, I would never have considered it, so that's good. The second thing I want to talk about is Pequannock DPW. You may or may not know, I get up pretty early and I run in the morning. And I'm out there at 5:30 a.m. And it's usually me, a couple patrolmen, maybe some other people.
I drive by.
He's driving past me every single morning. But I got to tell you, DPW, it's 5:30 in the morning, and these guys are already on their vehicles and either cutting the grass over at one of the schools or one of the other properties or doing it. That's 5:30 in the morning. They've already shown up to work. They've had their coffee. They're deployed. They're out there. So I see this all the time. I always think about it, and I just want to say congratulations and cahoots to our DPW. I know that they're better than any other town, and I love that. But they're out there, and they're already working when I am just starting my run. So they're awesome.
And they do a great job in the winter, too.
They do.
Yeah.
And I'm
All
running around the track, and I'm watching them do the fields and do their thing, and I'm running around other parts of town. And, I mean, they're working. It's not like they're chatting or having their coffee at 5:30. They're already out there. So
Very productive bunch. I'll make sure I relay your comments.
they're awesome.
Did you get your truck back, did you say?
I did not, and I probably will not.
Oh, boy.
No leaves.
Coach's
nothing.
truck is gone.
Yikes.
That's all I have.
Okay. Councilman Cole?
I have nothing other than, Fair Housing met on the 23rd. Unfortunately, I was in Maine that day, so I missed that meeting, but they did have a meeting on the 23rd. Nothing else.
Okay. Councilman Phelan?
Okay, Shade Tree met yesterday, and the Shade Tree Commission is looking for an ordinance from the town council to protect the town trees that are in our right-of-way. Currently, there is no ordinance that protects our trees, so somebody can say, I don't want the tree, and cut it down, and there's not anything we can do about it. They're going to, I think, Harper's going to sit down with you and discuss an ordinance so that we can make sure that we're protecting our trees. And we may want to look into, after that, doing a possible permit to take a tree down, any tree in a yard that a professional is going to take down. The professional will have to get a permit to make sure that the professional tree company has all the necessary license from the state of New Jersey, and not somebody who comes along and says, I'll charge you $200 to cut that tree down.
You're talking about on private property? A permit for private property?
No, when you have a professional come in to cut a tree and chip the tree up, that professional has to come to the town and get a $5 permit that proves that that professional has the necessary licenses, because the state requires this, to do that.
What is the benefit of that?
The benefit of that, because originally I said, I'm not for this because it's private property, but the benefit is it helps protect our trees in our town because we have a beautiful town and the trees are part of that beauty.
I think it's also going to help protect the homeowners.
Yes, from shading.
They have to show that they have insurance as well.
The whole thing is to make sure that they have the proper registration, insurance, they're registered with the state of New Jersey.
As long as it doesn't get out of hand,
Right,
where all of a sudden the permit fees start going up and up and it gets out of target.
Well, next year we want $10. But anyway.
Yeah, and if I could just interject, the one thing, and I think the ordinance to protect the trees in the right-of-way is a relatively simple ordinance that's consistent in many communities. With respect to the permitting, I just want to make sure we vet that all the way through.
Right.
Because there's some questions about, who's, because I
It would be
spoke
the
with the gentleman today.
DPW, right.
Yeah, who administers the permit, what staff's going to be responsible for it, how's it going to be performed?
Because I think that's a lot of, that's almost as bad as bamboo, I think, I mean, I think that's a lot of, I think a lot of
Bring their
infringement.
ideas to the.
So if it's not a town tree, you can
I
cut
think
it
that's a lot
down
of it.
without the permit?
No, he's saying no. I think that's a lot of infringement on people's private rights.
It's an infringement on the people who are going to cut your tree down. It's not you cutting the tree down.
Well, put it up for discussion. I mean, you need permits for a whole bunch.
Like what we had with all the trees down, I mean, all kinds of emergent things, you'd have to have waivers all over the place, because...
Well, it wouldn't be a waiver. A tree company would come in and say...
Yeah, but look when we had all those emergencies all winter, there's no way you had time to even get to,
Okay.
But that's got to be special circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have to start with the ordinance to protect our town trees.
And who polices it?
Town property, blah, blah, blah.
I think generate that quickly for review of council.
Okay.
All right. I don't have anything, just my normal committees will be meeting in September. They didn't meet in August. Just a reminder, everybody got saved the date for the dedication for the Martinberry House. You got your postcards?
October 13th.
Yeah.
12 to 4.
And I believe they're working with Shamrock for music. They're going to be doing something there. They're going to be selling hot dogs for, I think, a fundraiser. Or maybe have Jersey Johnnies. So it's going to be, I think, a fun event besides just a dedication.
I see Frank sneaking up from here, so he's getting ready.
Okay. Next on the agenda is public comment. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized to come to the microphone. Find your name and address for the record. Frank.
Frank Spizzeri, 35 West Franklin Avenue. Here to tell you a little story about PV Park and the admission to PV Park. In July, my daughter had a birthday, the 29th. And I went downstairs and I said, okay, I want to buy passes for my daughter. And they said, well, okay, you can buy 10 passes. I said, well, there's not 10 weekends left in the season, so why would I want to buy 10? I'll buy 5. No, you can't have that. Why? We don't sell passes. I said, well, it says on the bottom of the brochure where you guys have made changes in prices and that stuff, that you can buy passes for $10 a piece. But they don't sell them. You have to buy the badge, which is for 10. And I said, that's crazy. I don't want to buy 10, I want to buy 5.
So did you get the PV Park?
Well...
The community pass probably wasn't...
Actually, what they did was they wrote me up a letter and said I paid for 5 passes so my daughter can just show the letter and walk in the thing. But I said, it'd be just as easy to have a roll of tickets and just give me 5 tickets and they would get handed in. And you were talking about keeping track of who goes in there. You could also use, I know everybody's got the badge, and you probably have a badge for the whole thing to let the family in. But if you're bringing somebody else in, or somebody wants to come in, a friend of yours, you're already in there, they got to come in, you don't want to go out, they can buy one pass for $10 and get into the place. But you can't do that. It's not on the agenda to buy individual passes.
They should be able to buy the individual pass and then put a bracelet around it, like a water
Right,
park.
just like if you go to the shore, some of these shore communities, you can't get to the beach and...
I'm just saying that's something you ought to look into because, I'm probably the only person that ever did that in this whole town, but, somebody's got to get the ball rolling on it.
I'm just happy to hear there was a workaround and everything was taken care of. So
Yeah,
I hear that.
there was a workaround. But still, you know, a roll of tickets would have been just as easy to do. Give me 5 of them, I pay you $10 a piece, and then when they go to the gate...
I think there's a major enforcement that needs to take place there, and I'm sure Adam will take care of it.
Anyway, when you're doing the revamp of raising the price next year, keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thanks, Frank.
Anyone else, Sharon?
Good evening, Sharon Taylor, 19 Libby Avenue, Pompton Plains section of Pequannock Township. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. I'm sorry to hear about PV Park, about what's going on, but I don't think that we should shut out out-of-towners just because of 1 or 2 instances. Just from listening to feedback and thinking about it during the duration of this meeting, I'm not sure of, with beach badges, what they do hand out. Do they stamp their hands, or they put bracelets on? But is there somebody regularly walking around the beach that checks the beach badges?
That's the enforcement we
made that.
And then also, I don't know, Adam, if, because we have a prime season for the park, so within that duration, are there weekly meetings with the staff that work at PV Park to go over the issues that do occur? Are they trained on how to handle difficult people or issues like this that some of the residents have mentioned? And maybe if they were trained in the beginning of the season, maybe there needs to be another training for it, because like, you know, Mayor Winterfield said, you know, it doesn't hurt if you see something to call 911 or the police station. It's the same thing with the lifeguard. If they went over and talked to somebody and they were, you know, being courteous and asking a person not to do something, it's the same thing. They should not be allowed to be in that park. If they can't excuse that person or that family, then our police force or park ranger should be available to take care of that. Because we have, you know, a great police force that I'm sure the park ranger, you know, I don't know what their schedule is. It's probably upon their availability as well. But I think those are little things that probably just need to be fixed. And this is, we haven't had outsiders, or we haven't had the park open to outsiders for a very long time. So if you look on the website, the rules and regulations are very bare. You know, there's not really thorough regulations that are posted. But then, Mr. Uzdike, my question on a legal standpoint, if somebody comes to the park that's a guest, or if they are an out-of-towner, you know, can the township give them like a rules and regulation sheet that they sign off of, that they have to read before they enter the park?
Sure.
There was a mention about a kiosk at one of the parks. If we put something in the park, you know, can we put a kiosk in front of the pay station? You have to read it and validate it. You know, I don't agree with drinking and doing that kind of stuff, especially when there's other families and kids around. So if that's what's happening, that's a great way to enforce it. You know, do they check the bags? Do they check boxes? I mean, you shouldn't be allowed to bring coolers on the beach because we have a food station there. And then if there's an issue with the fencing around the park, maybe the team for Parks and Recs have to walk around between Woodland Park and PV Park, the facility, to check the fencing. Maybe there needs to be better fencing. Because if it's not happening during the day, I'm sure there's people going there at night.
I know down the shore they check your beach bags.
Well, I mean, I have a beach house, and where I am, they're very strict. You're not allowed coolers, no alcohol, no food.
No glass.
And they have turned away people. And, you know, some people think, oh, that's crazy, but if you come to my beach, it's like one of the cleanest beaches in the area. And it's very family-orientated. So they don't want that happening. So it's the same thing here as a park, you know, a lake. I mean, if we want to keep it going, you are going to need other people from other towns to participate to keep us going. There was a study done a few years ago, and there wasn't enough residents to keep the park. So this was an opportunity. I think it just needs some solutions.
Yeah, we can't leave you back.
Shut it down.
Yeah, I think you've stuck around a lot of things that I'll be discussing with staff tomorrow, and, again, like, thinking back to my 8 years of happiness as a lifeguard, a lot of these issues that are being discussed are not new issues. They're not unique to Pequannock, and there are ways to deal with it. We just need to make sure the appropriate things are in place to deal with it.
Right, and I'm sure the lifeguards do a phenomenal job, that they need to be recognized. I'm sure they had a few hard years with some of the things that were being said on social media, or like what a resident had said a few weeks ago. And, I'm sure to everybody's benefit, we want to keep the beaches clean, but there just needs to be better reinforcement for it. But before we just shut down the opportunity of outsiders, there needs to be some solutions to try that out first.
It's got to be better enforcement.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a sign hanging up of the rules?
There is a sign hanging up with the rules. I don't know how prominent it is. I also don't know, I know one of the big things that, again, going back to my beloved position, the member who brings guests is ultimately responsible for the conduct of those guests.
Right.
So when I was, back in the day, it was a pool, it wasn't a beach, but people did have their memberships revoked for the conduct of repeated bad conduct, I guess. So there are ways to do it. We just need to make sure the systems are in place.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry about your truck.
Thank you.
Just remember, sticky fingers, they will always get caught.
Yeah.
Give it like a few months, and what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Also, I'd just like to comment with DPW. They do a phenomenal job. I think I always come up here and talk about it because I've been a lifelong resident, and, between our DPW, our police force, we're a very close-knit town, and I think the DPW does need to get recognized at one of the meetings because throughout the season, they keep everything so beautiful in this township. Like, they plant new flowers every season, the mums are going to be coming out soon, all the weather and the other problems that we have during bad storms, and I'm more of a night jogger versus a morning jogger, so I could tell you there's times 9 o'clock at night they would be out there cleaning the fire hydrants and be on call, and they're still working. So I think that, consider before the end of the year that maybe we recognize our DPW a little bit better and have everybody say thank you to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? And, that's it. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jen.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Anyone else? I know, well, I have to ask. Next on the agenda is minutes for approval. We have 2 sets of minutes, and we have to have 2 different votes, I guess, or you'll handle that, Carol? Did everybody have a chance to review October 10th?
Yeah.
And of 2014?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from October 14th, 2014, and August 14th, 2018.
I'll second.
I abstain from August 14th.
And Ryan?
I abstain from October 14th.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, is there an executive session? No? Okay, so motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.